The native Uber app is a bit weird when it comes to account editing. When you want to edit any entry within the account, you click on it and it sends you to a different form where you can edit/save. I'm assuming there is some logic in that flow as it makes it harder to edit details by mistake, but it's not exactly intuitive. I chose to just use text fields and map them automatically to the user object with the binding API. This makes everything really simple. One caveat is that I didn't want to send user details for every minor change and only wanted to send that detail when going out of the form to save on bandwidth noise. I needed some additional changes to make the functionality work, but let's start with Edit Account form itself. When we click on the avatar button in this form, we can open the camera to capture a new picture and set that as our avatar. Notice that I set the image to be 512 pixels wide. The -1 argument indicates I want to maintain aspect ratio for the height. We need this code as the server limits the size of files it can receive. You can customize that in Spring Boot settings, but it's not a good idea to overdo the size as it could be an attack vector. I'll discuss the two setAvatar methods soon. The edit tag is the small circle on top of the image indicating that it can be clicked. I used a label and styled it in code. I could have done all of this in the designer tool as well. The padding makes the circle bigger and the margin positions it in the right position on top of the image. To actually position it on top, I use the layered layout where I place the image below and enclose the edit label in a flow layout to push it down. I use the UI binding code to bind the user object to the text fields. This will automatically update the preferences whenever the user types in a text field, as the properties of the user object will change. Notice that the text fields get their values automatically from the user object too, as the binding works both ways. This is a bit of a hack, but it works great. I only want to save a user if the data within the user changed. So I generate a toString value of the user object, which I can later compare to the current value. If the values differ, then the user object was changed. I only want to save data when leaving this form, and currently there is only one way out, back. I can detect the return to the previous form and save the data to the server there. It's important to unbind the object since user is a global object, and if we keep the binding, it can cause a memory leak. The user object will reference the binding which references the text fields. The text fields include the entire form hierarchy indirectly. Here we check that the user was modified as I explained before and send the data to the server asynchronously. That was a lot of code, but it wasn't that complicated relatively to the level of functionality it delivered. Let's start with the easiest missing piece, edit user. On the server we have a single method for add/edit user named add_edit_user. It's mapped to /user/add, but it does edit too. We already have an add_new_user method in the client, but that method is synchronous, and we don't want a blocking call. That's why we need this version that works asynchronously. We have two separate methods for saving the avatar. The first one is in common code. It saves the avatar image to the local storage. This is the exact masking code we have in getAvatar. It might have made sense to extract it to a common method, but the gist of it is simple. We need to mask the image. We mask and set the image to the variable instance that is used later by getAvatar. I return this value so it can be updated into the UI instantly. Notice that this is all entirely local to my phone, so we need to update the user account in the Spring Boot server. Again, this relies on a method that we added a while back to the Spring Boot server. Multipart request is a standard for file upload, and it's used when you submit an HTML form tag over HTTP with a file within it. It takes care of base64 encoding and related complexities almost seamlessly. I need the token to write data. Notice I encoded it in the URL instead of as an argument. Adding arguments to a multiple request is a bit challenging in Spring Boot, and I thought this was easier. Since capture returned a file name, passing it is literally the simplest approach at this point. And that's it. Avatar upload and download should now work.